Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Allison Campbell. I am the Heritage Outreach Manager at the Washington State Historical Society. I see a few new faces amongst the group, so we're very, very happy to have you, and then lots of old friends here. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that the Washington State Historical Society is located on the traditional lands of the Puyallup people, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. If you'd like to share your name, your organization, and an acknowledgement of the traditional stewards of the lands where you reside, I invite you to do so in the chat box now. So we won't go around and introduce ourselves live, but please, we want to know who you are and where you're from. So feel free to drop that in the chat. Just a few Zoom details. I know we're all experts now, but we do ask that you mute yourself while our presenters are speaking. We know I have two good friends with us today to talk about this topic, but we know a lot of you have experience with social media and have had to kind of manage these situations either personally or for your organization. So, feel free to share strategies and tips you've used in that chat box, any incidents that you've had that you'd like some sort of help teasing out. I'm happy to present those to our presenters towards the end. We'll have plenty of time for questions and that kind of thing. So please just use that chat box generously. There are a few things that I want to mention before we launch into our topic. The first is that nominations for the annual History Awards are now open. As some of you know, the Washington State Historical Society presents annual awards for good scholarship and promoting state history. You're probably familiar with the Robert Gray and the David Douglas Awards. I also wanted to specifically bring your attention to the Governor's Award for Teaching of History. This is open to both K-12 teachers and educators, but it's also open to volunteers or staff who develop and facilitate education programs at nonprofit museums. So if you have a spectacular educator at your organization, please consider nominating them. I will put in the chat the link that will to our website where the description of all the awards are, and the nomination form is there, and you can always email me if you have questions. Couple more quick housekeeping things. Thanks so much to everyone who signed up for our workshop series on recruiting and managing museum volunteers. Registration is now full for that, but we are going to be recording those sessions, and we're kind of working on how we're going to be sharing that out. So there will be an opportunity for you all to get that information, even if you missed the registration. I'm also working on a program with Nicolette Bromberg from UW about evaluating donations to determine if they should be accessioned into your collections. That's a topic that folks have brought forward and are interested in learning more about. Should I take this thing? I already have two of them in my collection. What should I do? How do I kind of assess that? And I'm also planning to present a session on the results of the 2020 Heritage Census that I know most of you participated in. So look out for those two sessions kind of coming up in April. On May 18th, we have an exciting training called Looking Back, Moving Forward. This is a training to help your organization use an institutional genealogy framework to examine your organization's kind of historical narrative and expand the history that you kind of teach and share and interpret at your site, and prioritize action steps to embed values of racial equity in your museum practice. We'll have a sort of much more clear and fully fleshed out kind of description of that program coming out soon, but there's going to be one 90-minute session on May 18th, followed by 4 smaller kind of group discussions on the topics of memorializing, making the most of a historic milestone. So if you're an organization that has a big anniversary coming up, how can you kind of think about presenting that history and preparing for that? Finding your voice, expanding your historic narrative, sustainability, strengthening intergenerational connections, and then recovery and relevance, strengthening inter-community connections, so community collaborations. Anyway, keep an eye out. Probably next week, registration will open for that. It will again be limited registration. So if you see that announcement come through your e-news, or if you have joined the Facebook group, you might want to hop on that as soon as you see it, if it's something you're interested in. Okay, that's all the business. So on the topic of the day, internet trolls. I'm delighted to be joined by Juliana Verbort, who's the Marketing and Communications Director at the Washington State Historical Society, and my good friend Ro Rohde, who is coming to us today all the way from Durham, North Carolina, where she's the Digital Marketing Manager for the Museum of Life and Science. Before moving to Washington, I worked with Roe at the museum in North Carolina, and we both ran kind of huge public events programs, and they used to let us do the social media for these programs. And this was like back in 2014 and 2015. And, you know, the most kind of disgruntled Facebook feedback you would get was somebody complaining that the tickets to the events were too expensive, or why are they always on Thursdays? I have to go to work on Fridays, that kind of thing. But obviously we are in a whole different landscape, a very polarized landscape today. And both history and science are the subject of mass disinformation campaigns and sort of on the front lines of this. We kind of just wanted to offer some tips and suggestions and maybe commiserate a little bit about sort of what to do when your social media feeds become kind of a landscape for this kind of interaction. So both Julianne and Roe have been, you know, dealing with these kinds of social media firestorms. So I'm excited for them to share some of the tricks that they've developed. I know many of you have similar experiences to the ones they'll share. And so again, please feel free to share anything you'd like in the chat, anecdotes, issues, questions, any of that. And I think with all of that, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to toss it over to Juliana first. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, trying to get my PowerPoint. There we go. Okay, you guys see that? Great. Okay, I just want to say thank you to Allison for inviting me to jump in here. And I would love to hear questions from people or specific instances. I'm the marketing and communications director at the Historical Society. So social media is one piece of the things I do. We don't have a separate digital marketing or social media person. So it folds into all of the other public relations and everything else that I do. So I'm not full-time immersed in digital media, just to get that out of the way at first. I do manage our Facebook accounts. We have several Facebook accounts. We have a Twitter account, Instagram, YouTube. And I would say that most of the trolls that I run into are Facebook. That's where people have the most freedom to yammer on as long as they want to. It also seems to be the most among our followers. It seems to be the channel that gets the most conversation going. So it'll get conversation between different people posting back and forth to each other. And the first thing I want to say is that trolls are not looking for resolution. They're not looking for you to resolve their issue. They just want to argue. So Mark Twain said, never pick a fight with somebody who buys ink by the barrel. And essentially, you know, he was talking about journalists. Don't pick a fight with a journalist, a newspaper, back in the day. But today, everybody has ink by the barrel because everybody who's on Facebook can say as much as they want. So the first thing, I guess, is that you don't want to engage in an argument. I think one of the things to think about is when you read a negative response or a negative post, is it actually a troll or is it an angry customer? So there's the people who complain about ticket prices or museum hours, or I tried to get onto your event and I couldn't, and I'm so annoyed because you guys do these events and then I can't see them because my computer doesn't work that way. I don't have that, or whatever, you know. So there are people who just need help. And that might sound like a complaint. It might be a post where someone's just complaining or ranting about something, that they're angry about something that happened in relation to your institution. And that is really an opportunity for you to turn it around into a positive interaction. So if you see something like that, decide, is this something that I can help with? Is this a person who's, maybe it sounds like a complaint, but they're really just frustrated and asking for help. So generally when I see those on Facebook, I contact that person through a direct message. And I say, hey, can I help you resolve this? I understand that you had trouble logging into our live event the other night. I'd love for you to be able to participate. Here's a link to the video. I'm sorry you weren't there for the live interaction, but let me help you figure this out so you can join us next time. And then you can turn it into a positive interaction with them, and they come out being more of a friend than they were before. You can ask them to communicate with you by direct message in Facebook instead of just continuing a conversation in the comments in a post. So you can reach out to them specifically and say, hey, let's direct message about this, or here's my email. Can you email me? Here's my phone number. Or please share your email. I'm happy to email you. So you can just find support, offer an answer. You know, if you don't have the answer, ask someone in your organization who does have the answer and redirect that to a positive outcome. So I actually appreciate those opportunities when they come up. If someone is having trouble, I'd rather know about it and be able to help. The other thing, you know, when it's someone who's just complaining, ranting, being critical, sexist, misogynist, whatever they are, you know, that is a troll. That is not someone who's going to respond positively in most cases with engagement. Sometimes, depending on what the phrasing is and what their tone is, sometimes you can engage them. And the thing is to approach it with, at least what I try to do is approach it from the standpoint of education. So if it's someone who has disinformation or just partial information, then can I offer them some additional education? Can I offer them a link to explore something further? So I have an example of that in here. So if you, the first thing to do is just, I guess, decide whether it's worth responding or whether it's better to hide the post, delete the post, block the poster, or you know, those are all options for you. So if it's really aggressive, you might just delete the post, delete their comment, or hide their comment. If I have a person who gives me 2 or 3 aggressive comments on different posts, I'll block that poster because they're not someone who wants to have a positive engagement in this community. And just because you can be part of a Facebook group doesn't mean that you should be. You know, just because you can say whatever you want, people feel entitled, but there are responsibilities that come with that, and they should respect those responsibilities. So if you don't have a social media policy, you might consider doing that. There's a lot of resources online that you can look at. You can check out Hootsuite as a good resource for a lot of this stuff. And I put on our Facebook pages, I put a really brief statement that just says, hey, we don't tolerate inappropriate commentary, and I might hide your post, or I might delete you, or I might block you if you're a jerk. So those are things that I'm kind of upfront about. Here's an example. I shared a post, a story about, Here Lies a Suffragist, which is this really cool heritage resource where cemeteries where suffragists are buried. You can go to this site and you can find the burial sites for these various suffragists. And I shared it. I took a quote from the article and I used that quote as the post. So then this guy, Matt, responded. He's like, yeah. So you can kind of tell by the tone as he starts out, yeah. So he's got something negative to say. You know, this was an effort to get women to populate the Western states. You know, when we were just trying to appease the women back then, you know, they didn't fight. Men are the ones who fought. We cracked skulls. We had to fight, blah, blah, blah. So he's not super aggressive. I would not say that that's super aggressive, but I would say that it is inappropriate disinformation, and he needs a little bit of education. So my tactic with him, I left his comment up, and I just responded, you know, hey, I guess it depends on how you define fight. You know, these are some things that women did. They organized, you know, they organized nationally, internationally, they protested, they fought for legislation. They actually did get into physical altercations. They were abused. And then I linked him to this really great story about these women that were arrested and put in jail and beaten behind bars. And, you know, if that's not a fight, I don't know what is. And he did not reply after that. So, you know, it's nice to be able to share some information and a link. And then anyone who's reading his comment can also link into my comment, you know, link to that link and read that story too, which is great. So you're just getting a little bit of extra education out there. Another example, sometimes a post is not something that is really meant for discussion. So this is a post, we wrote a statement, our director wrote a statement after the uprising in January at the Capitol. That was a huge event. I'm sure, you know, lots of heritage organizations felt the need to respond in some way. We certainly did. So we wrote a statement, we posted it online, but it was written as a message. It was written as a letter, essentially. So this is a forum for posting a letter. And that's different than a post about some information where you want to have conversation. So when I put this up, I knew that I knew it could be controversial. You know, I knew we would have people on both sides, you know, politically. we are a government agency. We don't take political sides, but this was something that was wrong, no matter what side you're on, what end of the spectrum. So we posted this letter, and I got a couple of responses that, isn't your positions, the letter was from Jennifer, the director, and her signature is actually in this post. You can't see it here, but this person is responding to her saying, isn't your position supposed to be someone who runs the museum, not using this platform for your personal political take on a situation? Stay in your lane, shame on you. And then the next post was condemning Democrats. It's okay when Democrats protest, but you damn Democrats and your double standards, So in this situation, what I decided to do was to hide every response to this post, because I didn't want to favor anybody. I didn't want to favor any particular slant on this. If someone, we also had people who responded, hey, thanks for posting this, great job, we appreciate it. I hid all of the posts out of fairness for this. And I think that's a perfectly appropriate thing to consider and to do in certain situations. So I guess feel empowered to take control in these situations, feel empowered to respond in a way that is appropriate for your institution. So this is my brief policy that I posted on your Facebook page under About. There's a little space for additional information. And in that space, I have this statement. Thank you for your interest in joining our Facebook page. We share social media posts in order to inform our communities about events, exhibitions, et cetera, et cetera. We thank you for observing respectful communication practices in your comments and post discussions. Inflammatory and offensive comments may be hidden or deleted. Those who post inflammatory, inappropriate, or offensive content may be blocked. So you are telling people that this could happen. Of course, not everyone's going to read that, but you have it there and you can point to that if anyone questions you. I think that's especially important for public institutions where transparency is expected and appropriate. One tip is to check your inbox and your messages on your socials every day. I know that's really hard in small organizations where everything is volunteer run. So if you can't do it every day, then it's if you can, you should. If you can't, then you can't. If you post something that you feel like could draw controversy from your audience, be sure that you're following up on that. So when I post something that I think might be controversial, I'm like all day long, I'm checking that post back and forth to see if there's been something crazy that's posted so I can react. In Facebook, in your settings, you can set your profanity filters. So if anyone hasn't done that yet, be sure you go in and do that. And if you don't know how to do that, you can Google or go to YouTube and usually get pretty good directions. I also included my email and my phone number here. So I know a lot of small organizations with volunteers, the volunteers don't necessarily have a lot of experience about running Facebook pages. So there's a lot of things that you can learn just in YouTube and on Hootsuite and other online resources about how to kind of tweak your page. You definitely want to set your profanity filter because that will automatically screen out any post that has a 4-letter word in it. In Twitter, you can set responses post by post. So when you post a tweet, you can adjust who responds to that. So you can say only friends can respond to this, for example. Let's see, what else do I have here? Delete and block spammers. Don't be shy about deleting posts if it's appropriate, if it fits, know what your parameters are. And if it is outside of those parameters, if it's inflammatory, if it's inappropriate, you can delete that. Or you can hide it. When you hide a post, the person who posted it can still see it, but nobody else can see it. So I like that option. Be Zen. That's what I'm trying to learn and do myself, because when you see these things, you've taken the time to make this post and you have content and you've considered it. And in the last year, we've had so many highly sensitive and highly polarizing situations. And if you work in PR, you're just like stressing over every word when you write a statement to make sure that it conveys the best message possible in the best way possible. And then you put it out there and somebody, immediately people start beating it up. And it's sometimes it's hard to not take that personally, to feel like you're being attacked or your organization is being attacked and you want to push back. So an important thing to do is to just take a few minutes, take a few breaths, detach your feelings from what you're seeing and just look at it objectively. It's not about you. It's not about your organization in many cases. Sometimes it is, or their opinion about your organization. So react out of a place of logic and calm and speak with a tone of educational input. That's my recommendation. Talk to other people in your organization if you need to get information or answers. I'm not a historian, so I'm often, reaching out to other people in my organization saying, this is what someone said. Is that accurate? Or where can I get more information on this? And then the other thing is just remember your mission and kind of keep that front and center to help guide you in framing your responses so that you are speaking from a solid foundation and you're not speaking from your own interpretation, but you're speaking from your organization's interpretation. Let's see, that's about all I have. I have, yeah, just the comment that, sometimes people reach out in other ways. I've got an email from somebody who claimed to represent a group of donors who were not happy with our posting during Black History Month. They picked one particular post or referenced a post that they didn't like. And I responded by saying, I really want to hear your feedback. It's really important to me to know what we are doing and not doing that work and don't work for you. What is it exactly that you're seeing? You're saying that we didn't post enough about Black history and that the only post we did do was something that was negative. I think you missed a lot of other posts that we did. So here are links to all of those posts. And I linked like 30 posts that we had done that were really great, positive, wonderful stories. I also linked that person to initiatives on our website about Black history and other initiatives that are related to diversity that we're involved in. And I shared that we have an idea committee, and I also linked them to our statement of belonging. So I responded with lots and lots of data and sent that back to them. And then they responded and said, well, yeah, but you still have this one post. And I said, did you look at all of this post is a negative tone. And I said, did you look at all of these other posts that I linked you to? Here's the links again. Please take a look and please do. I really want to know. And then they didn't respond again. So I think they were not expecting the list of things that I sent to them, but also maybe hadn't really looked before they responded again. Anyway, so you might get feedback in other ways too that you're going to have to dig into your Facebook page and pull up that post that you did and take a look at it and send them a link to it so they can look at it again and send other links too. So I guess just be responsive. And then with the people that are great on your Facebook page or on your social media, be engaged with them too. Like all the people that say great things or happy things, like their post at a minimum, or give them a comment if it seems appropriate, or thank them. All of those things are helpful too, so that you can have that positive reinforcement as well. That's about all I have. And I think, Allison, do you want to have Ro go through hers and then do questions at the end?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, we've got a few questions, but we'll save those to the end. And thanks to Ben for sharing the Secretary of State's office social media policy. That's really helpful. And Len shared the link to Hootsuite with some, kind of tips and guidelines for writing a social media policy. Yeah. So thank you, Juliana. So yeah, obviously with so much that has happened over the last year, with conversations about race and our Asian American and Pacific Islander communities and all of the communities that our organizations serve, it's really, I think, created these spaces for people to feel comfortable kind of venting their frustrations and their opinions. So those are some great suggestions for how to kind of manage that. And then of course the other big crisis of the year has been the pandemic and has raised a lot of issues around kind of feelings about science. So I know it may seem a little odd that we have a colleague from a science museum here, but again, she's a dear friend who I respect greatly. And if you aren't following, I'm sure you're not, everybody go follow the Museum of Life and Science on Facebook and on Instagram, because Ro does great stuff over there. So take it away, Ro.
Right. Got it? Just making sure. So I'm just gonna Julie and I are kind of talking about really similar things, so I'm just going to kind of go through. These are the 4 faces that I like to make when comments come in. So I figured I'd go ahead and throw it back.
Hey, Ro, can you do
Yeah.
it full screen? We're seeing a lot of your desktop, so it's kind
Oh,
of.
you can see all that. That's fine. I'm just kidding. There you go.
There, perfect.
Yeah, so these are my 4 faces, so I figured go ahead and start there. So hi, I'm Ro. I'm with the Museum of Life and Science. I'm the digital marketing manager. So I run all of our social media, our Facebook, our Instagram, our Twitter. I do a lot of work on our YouTube, LinkedIn, and just starting to dip our toe into TikTok, but don't tell anybody. So we have a great and engaged audience that really enjoys our content. We are very lucky at the museum that we have an 84-acre science park that's hands-on, interactive, indoor exhibits. We have a butterfly house. We have bears, wolves, lemurs. We have a train. We have a dinosaur trail. We have all sorts of stuff. So we definitely have a all-encompassing thing. So that we definitely have a great amount of people. When talking about trolls, there's a lot of different types of trolls. I have this photo up on my desk and I look at it all the time. It's just a reminder, and it kind of feeds into the Michelle Obama quote, when they go low, we go high. So you got to think of a troll as like a troll under a bridge. And, you know, the more you feed it, the larger they grow. And, you know, can you build a bridge over your troll? So you know, when you're looking at comments and when you get things on your different social media accounts, you know, what I like to do is identify, you know, the intent of the comment. Was it a lack of knowledge? Was ignorance to the topic? You know, or somebody that's trying to be funny, although those are often a mix of a lot of different things. Or is it just simply someone trolling a troll? There are plenty of people that want to just say something and walk away. And, you know, we have this incredible thing called the internet that you can talk to anybody you want. They might not respond to you, but you can definitely talk to whoever you want. So for the museum, you know, this is how we try to look at everything. You know, we assume good intent, and that's a tough one some days, but we definitely assume good intent. You know, always suggest that you know your institutional voice. So what is the voice of your museum? What is the voice of your organization? How do you speak? And, you know, that will probably have some of your personality in that as well, because if you're completely away from who you really are, it's going to be really difficult to make comments and to respond. Be honest and transparent as much as we can. Have the confidence to state the position of the museum and leave it there without further comment. A lot of times, you know, the more you feed a troll, the greater it grows, and they're just going to break your bridge, is the way I like to say it. So the more you give them, the more they're going to take, and they're just going to keep swelling and getting big. I work at a children's museum, if you can't tell. I like to keep a record. So I keep a record of all negative conversations or things that I have hidden, things that I've blocked, things that I've banned. Those get screenshots with dates and timestamps and the account that it was on. I keep those for 30 days. I was keeping them for 90 days. I shortened it to 60 days. I'm now keeping them for 30 days. So when I went back and found some examples for you guys, those are in the last 30 days, except for one that I've just saved since the beginning of the pandemic. It's too good not to have it go away. And then, you know, the other thing you have to kind of know is when to hide, when to delete it, and when to drop the ban hammer. And the ban hammer, you know, that's a great tool, but you also, like, it might not work in every situation. So there are a few organizations that I know that are very ban hammer friendly, and so everything gets a ban. And sometimes people just need to vent and they want to get some out, and then maybe they'll stay, and maybe they'll be a contributor to your content and be really great in the future. So know your institutional voice. This is Lightning. He lives at the Museum of Life and Science. He's my best friend. So I actually think of a lot of the things at the museum as if Lightning was talking. So the museum, you know, we're kind, we're engaging, we're honest, we're transparent, we're upbeat, we're knowledgeable, approachable, and only slightly sarcastic. And that's kind of me too. I try to be all those things, and I speak from the museum. So it's not, I'm not speaking, you know, as this far off thing. I really think about the museum is speaking. So those are the ways that our institutional voice kind of runs. Have guidelines in place. so that when you're responding, it doesn't feel like you're having to reinvent the wheel every single time. So, have something, if you have a good response that you like, even if it's something as simple as you're going to have a statement and then you're going to say, if you'd like to further speak with us, send us a direct message or whatever, save that. Have a document running where you've said, take examples. Oh, I've seen this comment, so maybe this is how I'm going to respond. Or I've seen this statement, maybe this is how I'm going to respond. You don't always have to make it brand new every single time. It's okay to have repeating bits. Use the resources you have, including other staff at your organization. I cannot tell you the number of times that I reach out to my colleagues. I'm very lucky in that we have organization that we talk a lot, and we really like to be involved in everybody's projects and everybody's things, but they're everything. They help with how to deal with certain questions, how to deal with concerns, how to deal with frustrations. So it really is good to try to utilize the people around you. That can be other volunteers, that can be people on the staff, that can be board members, people that you can trust and are part of your organization. All those folks are part of that organization because they love the organization. So that's who you want to speak with. Take a look at other organizations. Take a look at other, for me, it's science museums, it's zoos, it's historical societies, it's art museums. I watch other people's pages. I see how they respond. I see the responses that they get from their response, which that's a really good one, is to pay attention and then think, is that something that I would want to do? Or is that just I would never have said something like that. That's crazy. What would you do? What would you avoid? Don't avoid negative things. It makes you look bad. Responding is the best way to get out in front of it. You're telling your side of a story, not to be defensive, but just to have that information out there. And think about it as if a customer goes on a Google, sees your Google reviews and someone has written something very negative and you respond, that's giving information to that next customer. You're just being open. You're just showing people a little bit more. I like to say Twitter, you have the least amount of control over, but it moves at the speed of light. So you don't really have to worry about it too much. You definitely can respond to tweets. You're going to see if people retweet it. You're going to see if people quote your tweet. And you should respond to those things. Instagram allows for deletion. They also allow for restrictions. So you can actually restrict somebody on Instagram. So you can say, like, anytime that person goes to comment, I want to be able to read it first. Facebook allows you to hide, delete, ban, and then Google is forever. So be sure to respond. Set up on your own account that you get you get an email that says, hey, someone has left you a Google review. Make sure you respond to Google reviews. Those are really important and highly coveted. I'm going to show you some examples of some things that we've dealt with recently or in the last few months. So this one came got a 1-star review because this person was not able to find information about our cafe that's openly listed on our website. That's somebody who just kind of had a bad day. They came on the website, they were looking to find about food for their grandkids and they weren't able to find it. And she left us a 1-star review before never even being at the museum. We said, we're so sorry that you had a hard time locating that. Be sure to check our plan a visit next time. That way you can have an excellent visit. And again, this was just, didn't have the information. So not much you can do with that other than state the fact. So lack of knowledge is where that one falls. This one's a little smaller. Sorry. When they stretch, they look terrible. So this was somebody that was just kind of looking to fight. And that's the way I'll say that. This was about one of our after hours events that has alcohol in it. He responded with, Durham County gives you all this money for tax dollars. You should not be promoting alcohol. Okay. Well, this is a fundraiser, and actually those fundraisers, we're not forcing it on anybody, but also they support the museum's mission year round, just so you know. He went to, the free entry, you took that away from county residents. Well, actually we didn't, so really, I'm just stating facts here and moving along. And I knew with this person that it did not matter what I put, he was going to come back with something to fight. So we just kind of left it there and wished him well and said, have a nice day. These are some of my favorites to do. Our animal care team gets taken around for field trips around the museum when people are not there. So it was a post just about, this chinchilla was going around and meeting some turtles. And one of the top comments was, how many field trips do the snakes and owls get? And, maybe that was curiosity. Maybe that was trying to be funny. Maybe that was saying, oh, I bet the owls don't go out. But they do, in fact, go out, sir. So, responded with a photo of our snake on a field trip as well. He then responded with a GIF of a very shocked face. And then another person who was following along said, social media person out here with the customer service voice energy response. And I responded with the Seth Meyers GIF going, because can't blame me a little bit. So I feel like being playful, genuinely, look for genuine curiosity does happen. If you want to respond with honesty and then further play along in GIF a little bit, GIFs are a great tool if you can use them properly. And you should dip your toe into the water of GIFs in messages to your friends. It's a great way to learn, but GIFs can be a very fun way of getting energy and changing emotion sometimes. This is actually saved on my desktop screen as my crowning achievement. So we introduced our mask policy around the pandemic, and this person wrote sheep. Oh, right in the heart. And I responded, currently we do not have any sheep in our farmyard exhibit area. We do have donkeys, goats, alpacas, pigs, and bulls. This one was absolutely, it didn't matter what I said, they were going to construe it, they were going to get mad at it. So I just went with something funny. And as you can see, it got, responses from other people that thought it was funny. So sometimes you just got to entertain yourself a little bit.
Ro, did you respond back? Did they respond back to your?
He did not, which
you won.
Oh, just a little bit. I wanted him to. So this is a little bit about when things go a little too far. So stop hammer time. You can hide comments. They are visible to the poster. They are not visible to anyone else that comes on your pages. You can delete comments. Just keep in mind that they will stay in the count of comments. So if you have 50 comments on something and you delete 30 of them, your comment will still show 50. It will still be there. So there is evidence, and now people are kind of a little bit understand that maybe you're deleting some things. So just keep that in mind. Maybe don't delete all 75 comments on something. You can ban someone from your pages. This completely removes them from interacting with your content in the future. Museum of Life and Science, we have the zero challenge policy, and you'll see those points right there. Racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, aggressive, abusive language, threatening our staff. We have had that a few times. Threatening the social media manager. We've had that a few times. Anything that gets overly political. We allow a certain amount of conversation to happen, but once we are in the name calling, saying really bad stuff, threatening other guests or people, that's when we stop. Outright lies, and again, there are two sides of every story. So outright lies is one thing about us, and then spam, promoting other businesses on our pages. Not interested in that. And then here's some tips that I think are very helpful for the monitoring of things. I highly suggest the use of the Facebook Business Manager rather than the Facebook app. So Facebook Business Manager is its own thing. We use it because it allows you to monitor everything that's coming through on Facebook and Instagram, all your comments, all your direct messages, all those kind of things, without you accidentally having the ability to post on your personal page, because there is nothing more awkward than posting a response and it showing up as Roadie instead of Museum of Life and Science. And then you got to delete it, you got to redo it, you got to be embarrassed, you got to hope nobody from your organization saw it. Again, same thing, check in at least once a day. If you post something that when you post it, it could have feelings surrounding it, I would check it more than that, but at least once a day is good to check in on your content. Even if you use some sort of content scheduling, which everyone has access to now with the Creative Studio and Facebook, you can preset posts, schedule them out, and you could post the next 6 months of your content. But make sure you go back and look at those things. Monitor what's being said, monitor how it's being responded to. Go ahead and set up your notifications in your Google My Business. That'll alert you to any reviews that are left and try to respond to those very quickly. Google's algorithm rewards people for responding. So if you respond on Google, your algorithm gets a little bump. You get a good job from Google. And again, Google is there forever, as we all know. So go ahead and just lean into it a little bit. Always assume good intent. I know it's hard, but try. And don't take things too personally. That's insanely difficult for me. Allison can attest this. I take everything personally. So it is often that I have to go, okay, it's not about me. Okay, it's fine. I also feel a loyalty to the museum, and I want to defend the museum with everything in me. Sometimes that's just not the right attitude. You got to change it and say, okay, let's try to refocus. Let's see where we can change this and get the ball rolling. And sometimes just walking away is really good. Sometimes walking away and not responding is what you need to do. Lean on your coworkers. It's okay to vent. Find somebody that you feel is a safe space for you, and say, I wish I could have said this, and then you refocus and actually say what you're going to say. And then I highly suggest, if you can, join online groups. There's an awesome one on Facebook called the Museum Social Media Managers Group. It is just chock full of resources from people all over from other countries, from science museums, from zoos, from all sorts of different art museums, historical societies, everything. Great group. Lots of saved resources, and then ongoing conversations. There's at least 5 to 10 posts every day, and great responses of how to look at things. So that I would highly suggest that as well. All right.
I was just pasting. I agree that the Museum Social Media Managers Facebook group is like the happiest corner of the internet. I feel like it's such a nice supportive community, and there are tens of thousands of members and lots of people from smaller museums. And I've seen people just post, hey, we got this comment today. How should I respond? Or have you ever had this situation? So it's a really great kind of forum, and very welcoming and warm. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. One from Peggy about what I think is sort of like a specific type of troll, maybe not even a troll, but I've certainly had this experience where you have a former volunteer or a former staff member who has left the organization, is disgruntled, and then is sort of publicly airing dirty laundry, or, again, just kind of, and they know your organization well, and is, kind of undermines you on social media. Have you guys encountered that, and how would you approach that?
I responded in a private message to that poster, but just to share, I would, someone from your organization should address that person personally, make a phone call or email. Phone call is probably the best thing, to just get in touch with that person and say, hey, we're seeing these posts, we're seeing these words. What can we do to resolve this issue? So try to resolve the feelings or whatever it is that they have left with. Give them some support or empathy if it's resolvable. If it's not resolvable, and they are definitely in the wrong or causing harm to your organization, then I think it's fair to inform them. We're seeing these words. This is causing harm to our organization. Are you aware of that? Please be aware that this is harmful to our reputation. This is undermining the morale of staff and other volunteers. We would like to ask you to cease this kind of commentary. And then if they don't cease their commentary, I would just say, unfortunately, we haven't been able to resolve this issue. And because this is damaging for our organization, we're going to block you from our social media, and just block them. Yeah. And then you have a track record of, that you have reached out, you have tried to resolve the issue. You've done the positive due diligence on your end. And if that person doesn't want to change their behavior or their way of interacting, then they don't necessarily need to be interacting with it. It is causing damage for you. So if you feel, sometimes people just are venting and it isn't really causing any damage. They're just complaining, and it maybe isn't a big deal. So I think evaluating the level of severity and whether or not it is damaging.
And
than
sometimes
Jamie.
I think it's tricky because in my experience, I've never had anybody kind of specifically vent their frustration on the page of the organization, but are instead doing it in groups where there are a lot of stakeholders
Uh-huh.
with relationships to the organization. And so kind of, again, that's the classic talking behind our backs kind of thing, right? Which I think is another layer of kind of tricky. And I think just, again, as much as you can deal with it one-on-one with them off of social media is probably the way to go. What do you think, Ro? Do you guys have any examples of that? Or
We've had a few kind of smaller cases. I will say that social media policies are really great. Not only like internal policies for yourself of how you're going to respond, but ones that you have like in your staff and volunteer guidebook. So we have a policy about how to share information, and it really was just setting the parameters for our staff to know. So we have a lot of animals, so there's animal care, there have been deaths, there have been medical procedures, there have been, births, there have been all sorts of stuff. And we like to make sure that our social media and the museum is leading with that. So we ask like our keepers, like, I know you got that great, adorable baby wolf photo, but don't put it up until we have the time to do that. And I'm happy to share our policy. I've shared it in the social media group a couple times. And it's a really good thing to have. It just kind of sets the expectations of your staff. As far as, connecting with somebody on the outside, Facebook, you can say in a message in your main page, like, please direct message us, please DM us. You cannot reach out as an org, as a business account, you cannot reach out to an individual. So they have to make the first move, and then you can talk to them in direct message. And there are people that know that. So there are going to be people that they want to have a fight and they want to have it in person. And so it's just how much you're willing to give and say, like, I don't think this has gone a little too far. Happy to continue this conversation through direct messaging, or you're welcome to contact us at this email or whatever it is. I do not personally give out my personal email address anywhere. We have a communications account because you guys can have it, but other people not so much. So highly recommend that kind of thing. And then sometimes you do have to ban people, and I'm a very rare banner. I think I have 5 people banned from our pages right now, which is really low. But that's just how you handle it. But making sure you get them into a positive conversation and not letting it just spiral into madness.
For sure. And with smaller accounts, you might be able to sort of, like Peggy mentioned in the chat, just kind of pause your social media for a while and kind of do a reset. But of course, there are risks to that too, because that slows your kind of interaction and your traction. So I had another question for you guys. And if anybody else has questions or things you want to share, please feel free to throw them in the chat. Back in the beginning, as I recall, a few incidents when I was running social media at the Fort Nisqually Living History Museum and at Life and Science, there were a few times where somebody would post and it was maybe a critical negative post, but they clearly didn't have the right information, right? And back then I felt like a good policy was to take a beat and wait a minute and hope that some of our followers will come to our defense for us, so that we didn't have to actually correct them, but like the 50 people who know that thing is not true and have firsthand experience about how awesome this thing is actually would kind of jump in there and comment. But I get the feeling that that's maybe not the best strategy these days. I don't know. What do you think, Ro?
I definitely, we speak for ourselves.
Try to be proactive.
Because I don't want to ever put that kind of pressure on another person. So it's at this point, like, many organizations have social media managers or have someone who's at least monitoring social media from time to time. So trying to get on that kind of stuff as quickly as possible from our take is the way that the museum leads the conversation. So and again, it's also it's not just talking to that one person. Like, if you put anything up on Facebook, like, it's being seen by your entire audience, and sometimes past that and past that. So if you can get up ahead of it and state your case, and then you're actually informing other consumers, other potential guests, anything like that. So you're kind of guiding the conversation. So that's how we look at it is, interacting with that person, responding, answering if they have a question or if they want to kind of chat something out, but also we're talking to the next person. Because sometimes people are trolling because they're never coming to the museum. They're never going to talk to us again. They could care less, but I'm talking to that next person. So I want them to know that we're paying attention, number one, and that number two, like we're here. We do want to hear what you have to say, but also like we're going to course correct if there are issues.
Yeah. That
I would
makes
agree
sense.
with that. Yeah, that it's a lot of times I think Rose probably had this experience too. We'll respond and then we'll get people from our audience jumping in and saying, yeah, that's right. Rose right about that, so they kind of jump on the bandwagon and support you as the conversation goes on. But it's good if someone has misinformation, it's good to just say, oh, that's actually, have you looked here? Because this is this experience really is this way. Check this out, or, just redirect to what is the correct information.
Yeah, and you can kind of lead that kind of response. Yeah, Len, we've had a few spammers on some of our Facebook events that we've live streamed, and it's nice when your attendees actually start taking it upon themselves to kind of help you out in responding to that, just because that's just really a huge annoyance. So I want to present Deb's question because I think it's an excellent one and something I definitely wanted to talk about. So as a heritage association, a lot of our posts are either things were better back then or we stole the land from the Indians, quote. Maybe both true. Should I just let it go or should I just respond in a neutral way? And one thing that I'd be curious to hear, maybe Juliana respond to this. And I do think that, I personally feel very strongly that as heritage organizations, we have a goal of not just teaching the subject of history, but the discipline of history. My colleagues get tired of me talking about sort of historical literacy, like how do we help people think like historians, which basically means think critically, right? Like try and understand things from multiple perspectives and all those good things that historians do. And I do think social media can kind of offer an opportunity to kind of provide some instruction on the discipline of history. And so I think this is a good question. Juliana, so how would you kind of, again, if the same kind of comments are coming up over and again, like that kind of deep nostalgia, assuming that things were just blankly better in the past, or the kind of very continuous response of, this is all stolen land. Just those sorts of things that I know you hear a lot. Do you have kind of a standard way to respond?
I don't really have a standard way. I think it really depends on the context of the post. What is it in response to? What's it related to? That really kind of has a lot of play in how a response is directed, and how you interpret the comment. But one good tactic is to refer people to resources on your website if you have curriculum, or if you have a book list or outside book lists. We publish a magazine, so we can refer people to the magazine for history about certain topics. But I often see book lists. For example, this last week, we published a statement about the AAPI violence. And in writing that statement, I included a book list of 15 books that were recommended by the Seattle Times about the history of Asian Pacific Islanders in the Northwest. And, just referencing that we all need to, a lot of stories have not clearly been told or have been told from a singular lens. And we are all working to look at things through multiple lenses. So I think that's a pretty simple way to respond to that, that many stories have been told through a singular lens. We are all now working to tell stories through multiple lenses and to broaden the perspective and to highlight marginalized voices, or lesser told stories. I love to give people links to book lists because then they can choose to read more and educate themselves. I also ask staff members all the time about stuff like this because sometimes I don't know a specific resource that could be a really helpful guide for somebody. So I'll often ask staff for input on things like this. And sometimes with posts like this, it's just someone making a comment and it doesn't necessarily need a response. If there's someone who just feels like, wow, the world was so much better when I was a kid in 1934, you can't really respond to that. For them, it was better. That's their opinion. For them, it was better. And they have their viewpoint. It's not necessarily needing a response. So I think it just depends on the context and what it's related to, how you respond to it. But I would say, it's always great to refer someone to a resource where they can read more and broaden their perspective, and remind everyone that we're all working to broaden our perspectives and to review history. History is a living thing. These stories are living and evolving.
Yeah, I think that's where, and I know a lot of us have been having these conversations, certainly long before the past year, but more kind of urgently now, about the differences between history and public memory and how complicated all of that is. And for a lot of us, our organizations are kind of, hopefully leading our communities through some of that understanding. Thank you so much, Mizu, for your comments. Please take a moment to read them in the chat. They'll be included in the recording that I send you all, but certainly from the perspective of communities that have been left out of of the mainstream historical narrative, social media can be an opportunity to kind of shine some light without, hopefully we're all thinking about redoing those exhibits that we put up back in the 1970s around the bicentennial when our historical society was founded. I'm betting that exhibit doesn't really tell the full history of your community, and we're all pretty aware of that. And while you're waiting for the money maybe to redo that whole exhibit, social media can be a way to really bring some of these stories forward from communities that are not represented in that exhibit, for sure. Yeah. Hey, so Holly has a really great question, which actually came up. I just wanted to remind everybody that I am available and to do, I'm sure that you all have kind of your social media kind of on point or have it mostly figured out. But if you feel real unsure, just in the very basics of Facebook and Instagram, let me know. I just yesterday sat down with Susan from the Yakima Valley Museum. We spent an hour just kind of going through like how to schedule posts, how to boost posts, how to do an auto reply in your direct messages, because yes, you all should be checking those messages as often as you can, but a lot of you are volunteers and maybe every other day is the best you can do. So as long as if somebody direct messages you, they get an automatic reply that their message was received and you'll respond when you can. Like there's lots of little tricks to kind of make managing this a little easier for you. So I can help you with that. So just send me an email and be like, hey, I want to do a social media one-on-one, and I'm there for that. Holly actually had a question, and maybe if just either Ro or Juliana after this session, you can send me a link to the instructions about how to do this, because how do you create a museum representative identity on Facebook so that you don't have to use your personal account? And I think this has to do with the business app and all of that. Am I right? Ro's laughing. So do you have more?
I mean, it has to be tied to a person, and you can't. Sorry. Facebook is tied to a person. So the Museum of Life and Science is tied to Ro Rody. You cannot make a fake account. They will flag it as spam. They will know very quickly. The amount of lockdown that Facebook is doing right now for trolling and for bots is unbelievable, for good or for bad. There's a lot of good for getting all the bots out of there. And yeah, woohoo! But very bad for when you want to make like an account that's incognito. So sadly, you can't. That's why I highly suggest the Facebook Business Manager. You can log into that, and then it is basically, you're going to see everything from your business account. And then you got to really try to get into your personal account. And even then you can't post on your personal page. So it's the best way to kind of separate the two. There's an app so you can put it on your phone. I personally do not use my Facebook for my personal account at all. Go Instagram. But you can do that where you have the business page, and that's how you monitor things. The automatic.
It keeps you from posting pictures of your kid to the museum website. Yeah. So we'll send some info about the business app, because I bet many of you maybe haven't used that before, and it can be really useful to kind of create some separation between your personal and your Are there any other? We're right at 11:01, so we're gonna wrap it up. But any other last minute questions that anybody would like to ask? No. Well, great. So I'm gonna send probably maybe tomorrow. Oh, probably on Thursday. I'm thinking about my schedule for the week. Probably on Thursday, I'll send an email to everybody who registered with the link to this. So if you want to share it with some of your fellow board members and fellow volunteers so they can get this information, that'll be great. And I'll also include like the link to the Hootsuite, and I think Ro and Juliana, maybe if they're willing to share their social media policies, I'll send all of that to y'all. And then this recording will live on the YouTube channel. So thank you, Juliana, and thank you, Ro. That was great. I think it kind of made it all seem a little less scary, hopefully. Like, you know, you can do this, everybody. We can keep our corner of the social media world a happy, friendly place. We can do it. And an informative place.
Please reach out. Like, please reach out. My email's in there. I'd love to chat with whoever, and happy, like as Allison said, happy to share resources or chat through something, or if you need just to talk to somebody for a little bit, I'm open for that.
Awesome.
I just put my email in there too. It's in the PowerPoint, but it's in the chat now too, and definitely happy to talk. Also, just as a reminder, I put this in the chat, but the museum social media managers group that Ro has been talking about, that is a very helpful group. And you can post in that group like, hey, this situation's going on. What do I do? But just remember that whatever you post is visible to anyone who can see that, who looks at that Facebook page. So don't say something like, this jerk made this horrible comment, you know, what a racist, and I can't believe somebody would do this, and you know, I just want to say, go screw yourself. You know, you can't put that. So don't, I mean, you could, but you wouldn't want to, because then somebody can trace it back to you. So just remember, you still have to be your professional self, even in the forum of wanting to be able to vent with your colleagues. And as Rose said, it's good to just walk away and go talk to somebody face to face to get that venting out.
Awesome. Well, you guys have offered so many great just tips and suggestions, and lots of notes of appreciation in the chat. So thank you all. I hope that you have a great afternoon, and look out for more information from me about some of those upcoming programs that we've got in the works. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye.